Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, and today I have been busy harvesting one of my all-time favorite crops. You guessed it, I've been harvesting garlic. Now, I have put up probably 1,000 videos on how to plant garlic, but I don't think I've ever shown a video on how to harvest. And that's just because it's such a simple process. It didn't really occur to me to make a video to show this. But I think that it is worthy of giving you this advice. So you can see I plant my garlic always right along my bed edges, and that number one reason is to help deter animals. Above ground animals don't like the scent of the leaves, so that includes groundhogs, deer, rabbits. But in ground animals, which are especially a problem, voles don't like the smell of the bulb in the ground. And so that's why it's such a useful plant to put around your bed edges to help protect everything that's planted inside. Now, I typically plant garlic anytime between September and December. I give you a really broad time. Fall planted garlic, really for everywhere in the United States, but especially for here in North Carolina is best. And it grows all winter long. You can harvest the foliage throughout the winter. Now, in North Carolina, we're kind of on the edge, but I grow both hardneck and softneck. The main difference is softneck doesn't produce a flower scape, and it tends to store longer inside. And there's a lot of great varieties of softneck that do really well in the heat of the South. In fact, that's typically the type of garlic that's suggested to be grown here. However, I grow a ton of hardneck varieties as well, my favorite being Music, which is what's planted right here along this edge, and it's done really well. The key with hardneck varieties, you have to remove the flower scape in order for the energy to go back into bulb production. So I was harvesting garlic scapes really for the past like 6 or 8 weeks, and now it's the time, because you see the foliage is starting to senesce, meaning it's getting ugly from the tips and then dying down. That is the sign that it's time to harvest. So one of the other great advantages of having garlic right along your edges is just how easy it is to access. You literally just walk up to it and give it a solid yank. And that's a formidable garlic bulb there. Typically, your garlic is going to be, it's relevant, the size is going to be relevant to the amount of foliage that you have. So, you know, smaller stalks are going to result in smaller heads. I actually eat most of this garlic, but I also save some for replanting next year. And then I also like to buy different varieties, and I even plant garlic from the grocery store. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do that. You can. You just don't know what variety it is. So there's a disadvantage there. You don't know if it's ideal for your climate. But here in central North Carolina, Zone 7, I haven't had any problems growing the garlic that I've purchased from grocery stores like Food Lion. So now I'm just gonna walk along this bed edge and gather all the garlic that's planted here. And then I'm going to actually hang this in an area actually under an umbrella where it is out of direct sun, it is not getting rained on, and that is going to enable it to cure, which will allow the garlic to last longer when you bring it inside to cook with. So you can eat the garlic fresh, but I have about 800 garlic bulbs planted, so I don't need all of them to go directly into my kitchen. And I am going to start the process of getting these braided and hung. Now, another thing about hardneck varieties, these are all hardneck. This is Music. They don't braid well because they are really stiff. Like, it's literally a hard neck. So what I do is I actually just bundle them, and I use some meshy wire that is for staking tomatoes, and that's actually how I bind them together to be able to hang them successfully. So you can see I've gotten a great harvest just from this edge. But every now and again, you'll have a garlic that is stubborn. It's really well rooted. And that was the case here when I went to yank this out. You see the top part just broke off. So I'm going to show you how I deal with that kind of garlic. So you know how I love my hand mattock. So I'm just gonna come in here and I'm gonna kind of clear away so I can see where the top of the bulb is. And then with the pick point, I'm gonna go adjacent and I'm gonna pop it out. And it's not even like that big of one, it was just really well rooted. So, you know, if you have that issue, sometimes that happens if they're really wet, which we've been really wet. Also, if they've been in the ground a little too long and the stems aren't as firm, it's no big deal. You can just go through and pop them out with a tool like this. In this bed, I still have all this edge to harvest around the front, and then this entire bed edge. So you see, I end up with huge amounts of garlic. So let me show you how I store it. Well, as you can see, I have a ton of garlic. And this is only like a small portion. I haven't really even started fully harvesting yet. But I'm really pleased. Beautiful, beautiful bulbs. They smell so good. And I'm just gonna let these dry out here under this umbrella for like the next 2 weeks. And then they'll be ready to come in and they'll be stored at room temperature. And I will also start, doing some canning with garlic. Hopefully I will have some tomatoes by then that I can start processing into tomato sauce and other uses so that I can preserve this garlic to make it really last through the season. So I've been growing garlic for like 20 years, but I still don't consider myself to be a very good garlic braider. And I think in part it's just because I grow so much hardneck garlic and it just doesn't braid well. But what I'm gonna do is just try and clump these all facing the same direction. Usually I try to do, I grade them by size. So all the smaller bulbs will go together, whereas like larger bulbs like this will all get put together. And then really the process is quite simple. I'm just kind of, like you'd imagine in a braid, they're gonna be stacked. And what I'm gonna do is just wrap some of this green wire that I use for staking tomatoes around it. And I'm just gonna kind of intertwine that as I layer all of the garlic bulbs together. And that's just gonna hold it in place, give it some structural integrity, so if the wind blows, they don't fall apart. And I'm just gonna, continue layering bulbs on top of that and kind of winding that around. Here we are a week later, and all the garlic that I harvested and hung under my patio umbrella is looking great. Usually I'll leave this for 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks. That way I know it's fully cured. And basically what curing does is it just draws any moisture that might be in the stalks or in the foliage and lets that settle into the oils of the bulb. And the main reason you want to keep it out of direct sunlight is so that you preserve the flavor. Sun can actually change the flavor of your garlic. So if you don't have space to hang it somewhere with good airflow, you can also just lay these down flat. Again, somewhere out of direct sun, not getting rained on, one layer. So that takes up a lot more room when you're growing a lot of garlic. So I've found this is the most efficient. Moving forward, as I start harvesting more garlic today, I actually have my neighborhood kids coming to help, and we're gonna do the garlic fling over the rafters of my neighbor's covered back porch. And that really is the ideal place to be able to stash garlic. Now, I've had a lot of questions about whether you should wash or not. And I washed the potatoes that I harvested last week because we were using them right away. And generally with garlic, you're not recommended to wash them, particularly until they're fully cured, because you don't want to add moisture that could potentially lead to the cloves or bulbs rotting. So what I do after these have been cured, usually between 2 and 4 weeks, usually longer is better, I just sort of come through it. I trim the roots off, and which I have some examples of. And then I kind of just peel back the skin that is dirty. And that way you haven't added any water to it. and you get essentially a clean bulb just like what you buy at the store. I also usually trim off the stalk because for me, I don't have a root cellar. Most people don't have root cellars, at least here in the Southeast, unless you have a much older home. So I actually store my cured garlic in these mesh produce bags that I can just hang inside my pantry, and that's how I long-term store mine. Now here's the thing, I've seen a lot of bad information on the internet, what a shock, and you don't want to store your garlic cold because 42 degrees is the temperature that initiates vegetative growth. So don't store it 32 to 42 degrees. You're not going to actually have long-term storage at all. What you want really is cool, dry, dark, but room temperature is absolutely fine because it will stay in kind of this moment of not growing. And this is why garlic is never sold in the refrigerated section at the grocery store. Okay, so it's just being logical. Google is full of terrible advice. So I'm giving you my advice, my approach. I've been growing garlic for 20 years, super successfully. To me, it's the one crop that everybody should grow. It is really low maintenance because it's a cool season, so you don't have to irrigate or fertilize. It helps deter animals. There are very limited pests and diseases that garlic endures, particularly here in the Southeast. We don't actually have like some of the insects that I know are more persistent in Pennsylvania and going up the East Coast. Garlic to me is just, it doesn't take up a lot of room, and the grocery store garlic, 90% of it is being transported all the way from China. So if you just think about your food miles, that's an incredible journey that's totally unnecessary because every sunny landscape in America could be utilized to just grow a bed edge of garlic that could then facilitate the use of it in a local setting. So if you want to concentrate on, lowering your carbon footprint, it really does start with growing food at home. And my number one suggestion is growing your own garlic. And I promise you won't be disappointed because the garlic you grow will absolutely taste better than that you purchase from the store. So if you found this video to be helpful, please give me a thumbs up. Be sure to hit that bell notification so you'll know when I post new videos. And thank you so very much for watching.